All right, on today's episode of Locked On Avalanche, we are going to start our player previews. And why not start with one of the most controversial players on the Avalanche, and that is Sam Girard. We're also going to talk about Val Nichushkin. He's back in Colorado and expected to talk to the media on Thursday. Can we expect anything from that? All that and then some on this episode of Locked On Avalanche. Coming right at you.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, let's hope this cough medicine holds up for the next half hour. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to the Locked On Avalanche podcast. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. We did not plan this. If you're watching on YouTube, yeah, like we have similar color palette going right now.
Did we just become best friends?
I think so. Officially, yes. I think this is the stamp. One of us is going to have to change. It's a little bit too late for that. But yeah, first things first. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, making it your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. Make sure to follow us on our social media outlets, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter, X, Locked On Avalanche on Instagram. Questions, comments, concerns, and opinions, lockedonavalanche@gmail.com. And follow us on YouTube, over on YouTube. Hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live. And make sure to subscribe to our subtext as well. Link to that is in the show notes below. Subscribe and chat with Kyle and I one-on-one. And all of those socials, I just want to throw out a thank you to everybody for sending like messages and tweets and emails wishing me to get better. It's not like, it's not the worst cold I've ever had in my life, but it laid me up for a day. And it was the kids went back to school cold, and who knows what they come home with. And it's one of those things where it's like, you know that it's coming and you just can't stop it. And I have it. I feel a little bit better today. Hopefully tomorrow's even better than that. And I'll be ready for the regular season. So
yeah. I'm glad you're back.
Yeah, we're good. So yeah, thank you to everybody out there in social media world. On our rundown today, you see, if you're watching over on YouTube, we will get to that Mike Babcock stuff because that's kind of a big deal. So we're going to talk about that. We will talk about Val Nichushkin, like we said. But where we're going to start today, a good sir, is with our player previews, our player season previews. We'll do one player every day. If it's a slow day news wise, which I don't think it really will be with the the preseason right around the corner and training camp Thursday. Maybe we'll do two, but who knows? But for now, we're going to talk about Sammy G. We don't have any, like for the grades in the offseason, we do it alphabetically. For this, I'm going to leave it up to you. However you want to do this. And you threw out Sammy G, and I was like, that's the perfect one to start this thing, sir. So he's polarizing, obviously. There's part of the fan base that just can't stand the guy. There's parts that really appreciate him. The team itself, I think, is just fine with Sam Girard. But I will say, I think this is a very big year for him. I think we're at the point with Sammy G where we know what we're going to get from him. But I still think he has a little bit more to give, and I think he can do that. Do I think he can just climb up this mountain and just be this incredible all-star player? No, but I think he can be a guy for the Avalanche that is very valuable because he's proven that in the past. I think he can get back to that, but I do think this is a big year for Sam Girard.
Yeah, and this is coming off of last year where he had his biggest year.
Right.
In the NHL with 37 points in the regular season last year. That was a career year for him, which is nice, which is wonderful. And I like that you say he's got more to give because he does have that talent where he has more to give. But also going into this year, and we just talked about it in our crossover with Locked On Kings, and it's kind of really prevalent now with like the Tatar signing and everything the Avalanche are doing. There's not a lot of money the Avs have to play with. Mm-hmm. So every bad game, all eyes are on Sammy G and that huge contract. Is that worth 37 points? Well,
it's not like a huge contract. It's a big contract for what he's giving you.
And it's a contract. You're not so much looking at like it's $5 million that you can make to maybe get one or two more players. Like, it's not so much the Sammy G, Samuel Girard, La Tornade. It's we could get something for this, because you can make it. It's hard to make a case for other contracts that are on there. You don't want to get rid of your favorite player that you have jerseys all over the wall. But Sam Girard, for some reason, he is like, we had the trade Girard guy last year. I think it was the Montreal game.
Yeah.
Like, he's the easy scapegoat because of that $5 million contract.
He is the punching bag. He really is on the defensive end. And I got to ask you, like, you know, we were talking about the forwards the other day, and we kind of guessed what the forwards were going to be. We didn't guess what the pairings were, or we didn't guess who. Like, we kind of figured we know who the 6 defensemen are, and we know who the top pairing is. And the second and third pairing, Sammy G could likely be on that third pairing. If Bo Byram, you know, stays healthy, you would think that he is playing himself into that second pairing along with Josh Manson. And then your third pairing is Sam Girard and Jack Johnson. Not a terrible third pairing, but do you want a guy that you're paying $5 million a year to on the third line pairing? I don't know. And it's not like a knock on him. I think that's more that speaks to how deep the team is on the defensive side of things. But it does beg the question, like, do you want to keep paying if he can't play up to at least a second pairing with that dollar amount, because his dollar amount is higher than both of those guys on the second pairing.
And I'll raise you one more. You paired him up on that third with Jack Johnson. What if, let's just play both sides of this. What if he's with Jack Johnson and it drags him down production wise, and he starts taking a lot of minuses because of the Jack Johnson? And then I'll give you the big one. You hear that thunder off in the distance? It sounds a lot like Sam Malinsky. What if he joins the roster as well? And then that's where he lands with a veteran Sam Girard.
Right.
And then Malinsky for cheaper is blowing him out of the water. And then that $5 million that's everybody's pointing. See, we're not getting this out of this.
Well, I think and I'm glad you brought that up, because that could happen at some point in the year. You're expecting Malinsky to come up at some point. And yeah, he'll be on a third pairing. If it's with Sam Girard, I think that would make Girard play, you know, his production get better. Because I think Jack Johnson could just really drag him down a little bit. Because they're total opposites on how they play. And sometimes that works, but I just don't have a good feeling for that pairing. And they are comfortable giving Sam Girard minutes. He's averaged, let me get his stats up here. He's averaged at least 21 minutes plus in the last 4 seasons. In 2020, 2021, he averaged 23 minutes a game. So, like, they rely on him. It's not like they're throwing him on the third pairing just to get out there and give the top pairing guys a break and just don't mess up. Like, they can really rely on him. And now you have to we talked about this a couple weeks ago with the Devon Taves thing. Like, this is where all of this stuff comes into play, where if you really want to go sign Devon Taves and gives him an extension, that money has to come from somewhere. And I go back to the whole, if Sam Girard is on your third line, if he's playing, if Bo Byram is playing so well where you have to put him on a second line, that's going to bring Sam Girard down to the second line. I just feel like like they've played on the second line, the two of them together. So there's a possibility that could happen too. But you're really going to put Josh Manson with Jack Johnson on a third line? That is a slow moving line. I don't think you want that. So it's a big season for Sam Girard, because if the Avalanche do want to get Devon Taves here, like I said, that money's got to come from somewhere. And I think a lot of people are looking at the contract with Sam Girard and saying, like, where else is it? Who else is gonna have to be like shown the door to keep Devon Taves around? And unfortunately, it might be Sam Girard. Is that gonna be this year? I don't know.
And the thing about Sam Girard and his play style, coupled with Jack Johnson, Sam Girard likes to get in. He gets behind the goal. He likes to do the La Tornade. He likes to take the puck and cycle in the zone by himself.
You know what he's going to do, right?
And then that opens up the door for a bad, like, 2-on-1 defensive break. And Jack Johnson is there between two surging forwards. there's a minus. And then Sam Girard's either going to adapt his play or make smarter decisions. And up to this point, he's shown that he can, and then he shows that he just kind of gets lost out there. So it's going to be a lot to look at, especially with those pairings, especially coming out of preseason and the training camp, on what is going to be around Sam Girard, because Sam Girard himself, he's good enough to stick around, but it's a defensive pairing.
He is undersized. Like, there's no way you can get around that. But I think he's going to have a fine year. I think he's going to have he's been pretty consistent. Going back to last year and going backwards, 37 points, 28, 32, 34, 27. So he's, you know what you're going to get out of him, and he almost hit the 40-point mark, which is really good for him. I'd like to see him get out of the minuses. He's had 2 years in a row where he's been in the minus category, -4 and a -10. So, but I think he's capable of doing that. But I think you're going to see a good season and a kind of a typical, but maybe a little bit better Sam Girard this year. Kind of just where I'm going with him. I think you have our grades up from last year. I gave him a C+, and you gave him what?
A B+, because Sam Girard, I'm pretty sure he listens, so he's going to hear all this, correct all this, and he's going to have an A+ season next year.
Oh, predicting an A+ season for Sammy G, and then they makes the decision really tough for the Avalanche.
And
so.
For all those listening, my name is Chris Maselli. I'm sick.
All right, let's see how that goes. All right, let's hear from Jace Medical, and then we will get to Val Nichushkin coming back to Colorado, what to expect from that. But first, everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. Did we not just go through that for the past 3 or 4 years? That's why Jace Medical offers the Jace Case, and the Jace Case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you a peace of mind so that you are not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Jace Medical makes sure you have the medication in hand, and it's very simple. They handle everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy, medication delivery, and ongoing consultation and care. So don't get caught unprepared. You can save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jace Medical, plus an additional $20 off using the code locked on at checkout at jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. And don't forget to use that promo code locked on. All right, before we get to what could happen with Val Nichushkin meeting the media, there was a trade that went down. We were talking about Pavel Francouz and how the Avalanche are probably goalie shopping right now to find the backup for Alexander Georgiev. And Casey DeSmith was a name that was floated out there. That's off the table. He has been traded to Vancouver for Tanner Pearson and a third round pick in the 2025 draft. So that was you heard that name kind of maybe bringing him in. I don't know if the Avalanche were trying to get him and Montreal went with this deal instead of an Avalanche deal. I'm sure there were a couple teams that were kind of going for DeSmith because it seemed like he was on the market. And for one way or another, he's not going to be with the Avalanche. So the search continues right now for the Avs. We'll see.
Yeah, if you're a goalie, McFarland will probably be calling.
Yeah, and credit to the people on YouTube. They were also throwing out one thing that we didn't talk about was like maybe they wait for like the waiver wire when some guys get cut because that's going to happen. And if you don't really think Francouz is going to be out for a while, pick somebody up on the waiver wire pretty cheap and then go from there. But I do find it interesting because we were talking about the cap situation for the Avalanche. Montreal did not retain any money on DeSmith. So maybe that's where the Avalanche
might be where the phone was hung up right there.
It could have been. It could have been. So it's like the center of a Tootsie Pop. The world may never know where it went with the Avalanche in this. All right. Val Nichushkin back in Colorado. I think he was at that golf benefit thing that the Avalanche did. and expected to talk to the media on Thursday for the first time since whatever went down in Seattle in the playoffs, because that's when their preseason, well, not the preseason, but their training camp starts. And I know that this is going to be one of those things where there's just a lot of hubbub around this. And I think people are going to get let down. If you haven't heard anything about what happened in Seattle up until now, I think mum is going to be the word when it comes to Nichushkin. So I think there's going to be a lot of kind of what's going to happen. And then when he's actually has microphones in his face, it's just going to be plead the fifth.
Yeah, and you can't. I know there's a contingent out there that says, "Oh, it's not going to be that big of a deal." If people are tweeting or Xing or whatever you call it now, that yes, this is going to be his first opportunity to speak to the media since the Seattle incident, you already know that people are going to be asking.
Oh, sure.
And I
And
completely
they
agree.
should ask. Like, it's
Yes,
fine that they ask. That's the media's job, is to ask.
and
But I
you're
just don't think you're going to get anything out of it.
yeah, I completely agree with you there. You're not going to get any clarification on anything before Thursday. Thursday, I believe you're going to be hearing a lot of what to anticipate from him coming up, what he's going to give back to the team. He might say, I hate how last season ended, and I would like to make up for that in my play, and I'm glad to be back with my team, and the typical hockey answers, but you're not going to get a revelation.
And Nichushkin, like, kind of really doesn't like to talk to the media anyway. He's not the guy that goes out there and sits at that media table, and you don't really see sound bites from him like in the locker room when the media is there. Like, he doesn't really do it. And I think he might be like I think he has to be forced to. I think it's within like the agreement that they have to make themselves available. They don't have to say anything, but he really doesn't. He doesn't make headlines in any of these, these after game press conferences or anything like that, just because he's kind of quiet. So I don't think you're going to get anything from him, which kind of makes me think, is that going to make the media turn to other guys in the locker room and start asking them and kind of like rehashing this? And they were asked during the Seattle series what was going on, and everybody was saying the same thing then. Jared Bednar was asked repeatedly, and he kept saying this. The media, got to give him credit for trying, and he wouldn't crack. He kept saying, it's a personal thing. It's a personal thing. You're going to get more of that, and I think there's going to be some media members, because enough time has passed, maybe we'll get something. If we're not going to get it from Nichushkin, maybe I'll go to other players. And I can guarantee you they're having conversations about this already behind closed doors. We are still not going to talk about it. And when they ask you, Nathan McKinnon or Cale Makar, you take a pass. It's not my business, and we're moving on from that.
The Avalanche either go two ways with this. If I was behind the PR for this, I would put Nuke up first with a statement initially, a very vague statement, just enough to satisfy and go on from there. But you run the risk of every question to every player from here on out being against that statement, or you flip it around and make Nuke the last person they talk to. And then everybody just saves their questions for that Nuke, the opportunity to get to talk to him. And then you get your hockey questions and hockey answers, and then you get to ask and get very let down.
I don't know. I if they haven't released a statement by now, I just don't feel like they're going to do it at the beginning of this season. That was last year, and everything right now is we're looking forward to this year. So I think that's basically what you're going to get. And if the Avs got ahead of this thing in terms of with the media last year, this wouldn't be getting brought up right now. But nobody wanted to talk about it, which we've said is fine. It's really not our business. But the media makes things their business, again, which they have the right to do. I just wonder how much they're going to dwell on it. I just wonder how many questions are going to be asked before they move on from it, and before they accept not getting an answer. I think you'll get one day of trying to get everything out of this, like get blood from a stone here, And then after Thursday, I think everybody in the media moves on from it. And like, we're not going to keep trying to do this. We'll try, because this is our first crack at it, really talking to him. So fine, bring it up. But if he's not going to give you any answers, I think everybody moves on from it after Thursday. So we'll see. All right. Let's hear from FanDuel, and then we will go to another media frenzy, and that's out in Columbus, Ohio. But first, we got FanDuel. You know FanDuel. You love FanDuel. You can snap into action this NFL season with America's #1 sports book. That is FanDuel. And right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. What's better than that, sir? That's
Nothing.
$200 in bonus bets, win or lose. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there is no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use. It's very secure, and there's a wide range of betting options, which includes spreads, player props, over-unders, so much more. So you can go visit FanDuel.com/locked-on and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel is the official partner of the NFL. All right, I know we are locked on Avalanche, but sometimes there's things that happen in the hockey world which just need to get discussed. This could be a Locked On Avalanche podcast, a half-hour episode just about this. It has nothing to do with the Avalanche. What's going on in Columbus, or what took place in Columbus at the beginning of this week, is just there's so many different angles to go on this, Kyle. Mike Babcock, already a controversial hire for them, was hired about 2 months ago and is already out the door. I'm sure everybody has heard it, but just in case you have not, there was a report which was given to Paul Bissonnette of Spit and Chicklets and TNT about Mike Babcock taking phones or requesting phones from his players so he could go through them and look at the pictures in his phone to get a better idea of who his team is. Chicago. Columbus came back and said, yes, he does that, but not in the way that was being portrayed on the Spit and Chicklets podcast. And then there's this investigation, and I don't even think the investigation wrapped up. And Babcock was like, this is too much of a distraction. I'm going to walk away. Wow. My biggest gripe with this is that players texted Paul Bissonnette before going to the Columbus Blue Jackets GM or whoever. Like, that to me is like, you have a franchise that is not communicating. If you're going to have your players go to someone like a influencer like Paul Bissonnette before they go to HR of your own team, that right there in of itself is a little concerning. What's your take on this?
You ever want to see something go absolutely horrible from the beginning? This is the Babcock hire in Columbus.
Yeah, it was controversial to begin with. There's no doubt about it.
And honestly, there was no need for that hire to happen in the first place, especially if you're trying to create a new culture and a new direction for Columbus. That is not the way to go. And then for them to make this hire, and then even if it was the most innocent of actions and he was legitimately trying to get to know his players, and you've got to understand this day and age, the phones you're asking for, everybody has a phone and everybody's connected in one way or another. Playing the telephone game, it's going to get out there, and then the court of public opinion is going to go after you, and you already have an extensive court of public opinion on you, Babcock. Like, you've got to really just shore it up just a little bit, and for it to be investigated. And then, and like the extra on top of it, how Columbus management talked about Babcock, like, this was a mistake. We should have listened and done more vetting. Yeah.
But they initially backed him up.
I know.
Like, Boone Jenner and the Columbus Blue Jackets came out with a statement saying All that he was doing was they were talking about what they did over the summer, getting to know his players. Boone Jenner said, I got married or I had a kid or something like that. He's like, oh, let me see what your kid looks like. That was what Columbus was backing him up on. And then 24 to 48 hours later, they're saying like this was a huge mistake. So it's like, was it a mistake or what were you backing him? And because you released two completely different statements within 24 hours of each other, makes no sense to me. And Jarmo Kekalainen, who is their GM, during the press conference said, he did this to me. He did this to me where he asked for my phone because he wanted to see my family and stuff like that. And I didn't have a problem with it. Okay, so then now I completely understand why your players are going to Paul Bissonnette to tell him that this is what this guy is doing, because you didn't have a problem with it. You said point blank you didn't have a problem with it. So if the player came to you, you would have been like, "Oh yeah, he did it to me. It's not no big deal. Suck it up."
And
Okay.
and then you wonder why, like, Columbus and Minnesota came in the league at the exact same time. And you now see why Columbus, like Johnny Hockey is playing there because it's semi-local for him.
Right.
Other than that, it's not a destination.
No,
And
it's really not. Yeah.
it's one of those similar situations that something smells rotten and you don't understand what it is. It's the same kind of situation like that you hear out of Winnipeg. It's not a destination. Everybody's trying to get out. The same for Columbus. And when you hear stories like this, and then you hear management like referring to Babcock up until he stepped away as a good guy, we're giving him a shot. Like, we know this is going to be good for him. They're backing him up. And then he leaves and they turn on him and say, no, this was a mistake. We let you down, Columbus Blue Jackets fans. We are going to do a better job in the future. I mean,
what you want to hear. It's
it's
like, why didn't you do a better job now?
then
And I'm
what if
shocked that, yeah, go ahead.
what if I'm putting on that sweater in the locker room, getting ready for this 2023-24 season, and knowing that's the management, that they can back me all day long, but the second it starts getting hot in here, they're going to turn on me.
Crazy.
Like, you can't have an environment like that.
Yeah.
We're spoiled in Colorado to have the management that we do.
We do. I mean, management there is very, yeah. I mean, you pretty much feel comfortable with them and how they handle things, even though we were just talking about the Val Nichushkin thing, but according to the league, they handled it as well as you can handle it. Yeah, I'm just very surprised at John Davidson, who was with the New York Rangers, that he would go down that road to begin with Babcock. But that is what it is, the decision that they made. I kind of want to talk about the whole Bissonnette angle here, because I'm I completely understand, like, this is where kind of sports media is going. And that show is the #1 hockey podcast out there. It's not my cup of tea. I'm more of a 32 Thoughts guy. I like that kind of traditional style of reporting rather than the bombastic, expletive rants that Spit and Chickens can go on. But I understand that its value. I understand its place in the culture, and I understand it's wildly popular, and that's part of the appeal. I understand that he is also very popular with players, and I get that. And for a player to go to him and say, like, this is what's happening, it doesn't surprise me. My biggest problem was when he said what he said on his show initially, and then I keep saying Chicago. Columbus came out, because Chicago has their own problems too.
Yeah,
Columbus came out and said, it didn't happen that way. We're really disappointed in the Spit and Chicklets. Bissonnette's response on Twitter is what rubs me the wrong way. This just top to bottom, just every expletive you can think of in the tweet. That's, to me, is just not how you handle things. Like, if you're confident on what you're saying on your show is accurate, then you just sit back and say, hey, Columbus disagrees with me. I have my information. I'm standing behind it. I just feel like when you go off on these tirades and these, like, childlike stomping your feet on the ground rants, even though you were right in the end, just makes you look a little bit foolish to me. I just don't like that look. And he did it a few times on the same topic. It's not my style. I get it. And it's the style for a lot of people, and clearly a ton of people, because like I said, they're number one. I just would have liked to seen a little bit more professionalism there when it came to my reporting is accurate, and we'll get to the end, and the end is what it is, and then you can have your victory lap.
And see, and like, yeah, I used to like chiclets, and then it kind of sunk into what it is now.
Mhm.
But you have to, like, I see it kind of like one step back, a little larger picture. The professionalism part for him, those names still haven't come out on who leaked that to him.
Mhm.
So that is good. But whoever did, congratulations. You worked the system. You gave it to the loudest, most
So
bombastic,
true.
that you just dropped it and walked back and just watched the world burn, because you couldn't go to management. You couldn't get it addressed yourself. So you're like, I know how we can do this. I have a buddy, and he
Mhm.
takes all the flack. He takes all the heat, and then he gets to be right.
Yeah.
And then you get a new coach. So whoever did that is the true mastermind, because you used a puppet to get what you needed done in Columbus, because you couldn't go up to the
Mhm.
guy in the office paying your paycheck.
They knew what they were doing.
Yep.
And yeah, Bissonnette's got a lot of power. You have to hand him credit for that. Just how he goes about it, not how I would do it. So, but hey, it sells, and it's just crazy. That's where we are in the world of media, that people behind the microphone now have as much or even more power than front office people. It's crazy. It's crazy. All right, that's going to wrap it up. We could have went on that topic for a week. It's kind of a fascinating topic,
Our
and all
locked
because
on
it
TED
revolves.
Talk.
Yeah, it's and because it revolves around Babcock. Just is why this is so huge.
Yeah, I'll never
Uh,
forgive him for the Madonna incident. So
Crazy. Amazing. So, all right, if you got comments on anything we talked about today, please feel free to fire away in the comments section. Yeah, we'll be back tomorrow. I made it through, Kyle. I
I'm
powered
so
through.
proud of you.
The world is my oyster. Tomorrow doesn't stand a chance. So we'll be back tomorrow. Talk about anything. I don't know who we're
Famous
gonna.
last words.
Yeah, we'll figure out who we're gonna preview tomorrow when Kyle thinks of it, and then we'll talk about them tomorrow. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and making our first listen of the day. Always appreciated. He is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. I'm Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.